Hey everyone, this is Alan Schimmel. You're watching TechStrong TV, and today is Monday, June 29th. Hope you've had a great weekend and coming in ready to work as we move through the summer months here on TechStrong TV. Lots going on in the tech world everywhere. We're seeing companies raise money. We're seeing M&A activity. We're seeing lots of new products rolled out, lots of new activities. I think people have taken the chance or the opportunity during this COVID situation and all of the just unusual activity going on to really take a good look at their businesses and say, what can we do better? What new products or feature sets can we roll out into our products? What are we doing as a team with everyone working remotely? Productivity is actually up in a lot of tech organizations is what we're hearing and seeing. Jobs, though, look, in the economic sector or in the economy, at least here in the U.S., we're losing, 1 million plus jobs a week for the last couple of weeks. The tech sector, while some people were laid off, it's true, and hearts go out to them, but they're finding new jobs, and recruiters and job boards, are posting new positions. Companies are hiring. They're looking this as an opportunity to add skilled workers. Unfortunately, here in the U.S., we've suspended our H-1B visa program, which I posted on LinkedIn about. I think it's a terrible move by the administration, because what they don't understand is that the H-1B visa is very much one of the lifebloods of our industry, right? This is where we get new talent, skilled workers who come from other countries come here. They work here. They often will start companies here. I don't have to remind you of some of the great immigrants who came here on H-1B visas and wound up becoming quite successful entrepreneurs. It kind of baffles me why we would cut that pipeline off. People coming here to be Java programmers aren't taking migrant or factory worker jobs away from Americans. But nevertheless, it's there. And my fear, quite frankly, is that, if the talent and skilled worker pool is over there rather than here, capital and companies will go to where the worker pool is, right? As Thomas Friedman wrote about in It's a Flat Earth and a Hot Flat Earth. Capital and companies are going to go where they can find workers. And if we don't have enough workers doing those skilled jobs here, it's going to wind up hurting our economy in the long run. And you know what? Through it all, look, in the U.S., probably our two of our biggest market, plays in markets is technology and finance, right? And Wall Street and so forth. I don't think you want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. So I'd ask you, call on your congressional leaders, call the administration, do what you can. We need to open up these H-1B visas. We need that lifeblood, that lifeline of skilled workers with tech skills coming in here to continue to fuel the growth of our tech industry. So, and most of all, come November, vote. That's writing letters, calls are all great, but the greatest thing you can do is vote. So if you haven't already done so, register to vote in November. Vote, and vote for your pocketbooks. Vote for, you can vote for whatever you want, but vote. Anyway, that's my public service announcement for today, Monday, June 29th. Let me talk a little bit about what we have in store today. I have some great interviews, new companies to introduce you to. The first one is called Lightrun, and I spoke with their CEO, co-founder, Ilan Peleg. Lightrun's a new Israeli company, just announced a $4 million initial raise. And they're developing a platform for continuous debugging and observability. Observability, of course, is a hot topic these days. So I spoke to Ilan about this, Ilan Peleg, and I think you'll find that interesting. Then we'll be back with an interview with David Habash and Paolo Shakaran. I'm not even going to pronounce his last name right now. I apologize. But anyway, it's about a joint research report on software security vulnerability prioritization, not based upon the eyes of the vulnerability team or the DevOps team, but through the eyes of a hacker. And so it gives you a different view of these things, and I think you're going to like it. After that, I'm really happy to talk with Alex Bilmes from over in Puppet. Puppet just announced the public beta of something called Puppet Relay, which is bringing automation to workloads. You know, if you look, and Alex and I discussed this, if you look where Public came from, right, automating configuration management and instances in cloud and so forth, spinning up instances. This takes that kind of functionality and brings it to workload. So it really is, I mean, it's right. It's in Puppet's sweet spot. It is at the essence of what Puppet always was, and I think this is a great extension and addition. It's in public beta. Alex is going to tell you more about it. Then we're going to go to the archives for something old, and again, not too old, as we continue our review of the TechStrong Con sessions from earlier this month. And today, I'm happy to feature my friend, Helen Beal, from DevOps Institute. Helen has a few other gigs she works on, but primarily at DevOps Institute, I think, these days. Anyway, Helen presented at TechStrong Con on community and capitalism. And it's really about DevOps, and it's how these two notions of community volunteerism, as well as the requirement, to bring revenue in for commercial entities, play itself out within the DevOps market. And so great discussion there from Helen. I think you're going to like that session. I'll be back after that with the news, and the usual headlines around the media ops sites. And then we'll head things over to our managing editor, Charlene O'Hanlon. Charlene has the CEO of Catchpoint on today to discuss the results of their 2020 SRE survey. Interesting, and it's an interesting survey with results. I think you want to pay attention to that. And then Charlene will also be doing a little webinar preview of what we have in store webinar-wise this week over at MediaOps. We always do anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe sometimes even more webinars a week, some on DevOps, some on security, some on cloud native. Anyway, after that, though, we're going to be heading over to the Analyst Corner with Mitch. Mitchell Ashley has two pieces for us today. One is Mitchell's going to discuss the growing impact of low-code technologies. This is an area we've been covering for a while, and it's really, and I don't know if it's the COVID-related thing and the working remote thing or not, but low-code is really just on fire, in terms of critical mass, and I think we're seeing a ton of stuff in there. And then Mitchell also has a video interview that he did with Charles Varr from TrackVia, and that's a really good one too. It's also about a recent survey showing gaps in business processes not ready for remote, and how businesses increasing feel empowered to pursue new digital tools, such as low code. So, low code's a big thing with Mitch today. And we'll have his commercial. We're going to be announcing after Mitch, there's a commercial or a little segment I want you to watch. It's only, a half a minute or so, from Jane Grohl, our CEO, my partner CEO at DevOps Institute. And Jane is talking about a new series that she's going to spin up. The first episode will be up later this week. Explain with Jane. And that promises to be pretty good. So check that out. She has some good information on that if you'd like to participate in that going forward. And then I'll be back to wrap things up. So It's an exciting Monday. It's back to work, though. Let's take a quick break from our commercial, for a commercial from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with our first guest.
With the COVID-19 pandemic, it is important to protect yourself and others from spreading the virus. Prevention and personal safety is key. Here are the top ways you can protect yourself and others. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your face. Practice social distancing and avoid high-risk potential people. If you are showing symptoms, stay at home. If you must go out, wear a face mask. Always cover coughs and sneezes with a tissue or use the inside of your elbow. Clean and sanitize frequently touched surfaces daily. Together, we can prevent this pandemic.
Our first guest today, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is Ilan Peleg. Ilan is a CEO founder of a company called LightRun, an Israeli-based company. They just announced their first funding of $4 million. And they are about continuous debugging and observability. It sounds pretty interesting, actually. There's a development aspect, security aspects to it. Excellent stuff. Also, Ilan is a very interesting individual. He was like a pretty renowned middle distance runner. Met his co-founder at a bus stop a number of years ago. They had founded another company in the consumer space, did okay, but they really were passionate about what became LightRun, and he's going to tell his story on it. So let's go now to our interview with Ilan Peleg of LightRun.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everyone. For our next segment here on TechStrong TV, I'm going to highlight a new company just coming out of stealth. They're based in Israel. It's LightRun is the name of the company. And I have with us their CEO, Ilan Peleg. Ilan, welcome to TechStrong TV.
Well, thank you for having me, Alan.
My pleasure. So LightRun, the new company just coming out of stealth. Share with our audience a little background. What's LightRun about, and what made you come out of stealth now? And let's see what it's about.
Sure. So LightRun is here to lead what we call the continuous debugging and continuous observability practice. We're going to do that by transforming the production environment or any other remote environment such as QA, staging, and more to be totally transparent. What do I mean? So in today's world, whenever a developer issues a new software version and deploys it into production, the only way to understand the application's behavior is based on log lines and metrics which were defined during the development stage. The thing is that it's simply not enough. We've all encountered cases of missing a very specific log line when trying to troubleshoot production issue, then having to release a new hotfix version in order to add this log, or alternatively, reproduce the bug locally to better understand the application behavior. It's even worse in recent years. The gap between production and development environment widens. We all hear about microservices, service architectures, which make production issues hard to anticipate and even harder to reproduce. We are here to bridge this observability gap. LightRun enables developers to securely add logs, performance metrics, and traces to staging and production environment in real time, on demand. Real time means we skip the traditional CI/CD pipeline, so no need to redeploy or even restore the application in order to add new log lines or metrics to live application. We actually want to say the following. If you have new functionality you want to add to your service, sure, you must go through the traditional CI/CD pipelines, QA, tests. We actually believe in quality of code, right? But if the only thing you aim for is to enhance the application's visibility, use it LightRun and streamline current iterative processes to be totally real-time.
Excellent. It's a good description. Ilan, so you guys just came out of stealth. You announced some funding, yes? And but how long have you been working at this?
So Lighton has been in business for almost a year. We recently raised our first seed round for $4 million. It was led by Glilot Capital Partners and several tech-savvy angel investors from Fortune 500 companies and the DevOps ecosystem. And in this past 10 months, we were able to build our product and acquire a dozen of enterprise paying customers, design partners who are already using our product to debug in production.
That's fantastic. And give our audience a little, what's your personal background?
Sure. So actually, I started out in a totally different profession. I was an athlete until the age of 21. I was an international middle distance runner. And I think competitive running taught me discipline and competitive spirit. But it was also where I understood that I wanted to build something in my life. I loved running, but I had more skills I wanted to use. I knew I had math and logic skills. When I was 15, actually, I competed in the national math competitions and even won some. So, put it all together, I aspired to build a tech company. At the age of 21, I met Leonid Blufstein at the bus station. I was on my way to another track running session while he was on the way to the university. We both had the desire to create and build stuff, so we created Homey Food. Homey Food was a homemade food marketplace. We got great local traction, and we were even acquired after 8 months of activity. And this previous success gave us the appetite to build more products and companies together. We also understood that the right way to build a startup is by gaining experience and using your skills as your competitive advantage. So we waited a few years, worked in the tech industry, some enterprises, successful startups which were acquired, serving in 200 elite intelligence units of IDF. And now we're all in building Lightroom.
Excellent. Great story. All right. So now the fun starts, right? You've got some money, you've got a board to answer to, and you've got 12 enterprise already customers using the product. Of course, this is a very hot area, what we call DevSecOps, where we're shifting security left, we're looking at debugging and I like to call it improving the quality, not necessarily making it more secure, though that is what you do when you improve the quality of the code. But it's really, improving the quality of the code out there.
We're not exactly, sorry for interrupting,
Go ahead.
we're not exactly improving the quality of the code, but more improving the quality of the service. Because assuming you have some production issue, we want to be there next to you, assisting you to troubleshoot the same issue like as fast as you can.
Okay, fair enough. So most of your customers, these are kind of SaaS-based applications, you'd say then, whether they're internal or external, for an external audience or not. They're delivered, as a SaaS in a SaaS sort of model.
Yeah. So basically, we have a mix in our customer base. We have both, SaaS enterprise companies, but also like more regulated companies serving their customers in on-prem deployments. And we found it pretty useful to assist them connect to these remote environments and troubleshoot within the real environment, as opposed to what they're used to do today whenever they try to reproduce the bug locally in their local environments instead of interacting with real data within real customers' environment. So we see a mixture. And I think that time will say what's our sweet spot. For now, we see a huge amount of value gained in both verticals.
Absolutely. What do you think the biggest challenge is there?
I think that whenever we talk with this specific kind of customers, we see that their customers are not so happy whenever we need to open new ports for this connectivity or to add another debugging tool, because in terms of messaging, what they're trying to say, listen, there might be some problems and we want to be able to fix them. So it's not necessarily the kind of things that you want to hear from a vendor whenever they deploy the product within your service, within their environment. So
Now,
there is some kind of obstacles we should overcome, during the upcoming period of time.
absolutely. So now that you've come out of stealth, you raised money. What is the next thing sort of on your list? Where do you go next with this now?
So at this point of time, we are here working very, very hard to enhance the kind of use cases we support and kind of problems we assist you to troubleshoot in production environment. We started giving you the capability to add logs on demand, to add the ability to add new logs on demand, and very quickly we identified other performance issues, other synchronization issues happening within production environments. And then we identified that the right thing would be not positioning ourselves as a production debugger, but as a platform that gives you the capability to add all the three pillars of observability, which are logs, metrics, and traces in real time, in order to give you a broader solution for all kind of issues that might appear in production environment in real time.
Excellent. And in terms of go-to-market, I mean, so you're based in Israel, obviously. Are all your existing customers Israeli-based as well, or are there some U.S., European-based?
No, we are heading to U.S. I think it was very straightforward for us that we should target the U.S. market very early during the life cycle of the company. In terms of go-to-market, our strategy is based on two approaches, bottom-up and top-down. Bottom-up, we are targeting developers. They are the end users, and they want to ensure that they get a quality product they can trust to help them. We're putting a lot of effort into reaching out through developer channels and developer communities, as well as enabling usage and getting feedback. By the way, so far, we see lots of excitement and responses have been very positive. And the top-down is, here to approach R&D management. We're going to show them how Lightrun saves the company development resources and improves customer satisfaction. We also put a lot of effort into building a product that is secure for the enterprise companies.
Excellent.
So it's a mix of efforts.
Very, very good. And look, in today's world, most people try things on the web. If they like it, they buy it. If there's a free version, they'll use it till they need. Is that the model here? Is there a sort of free version or a trial version? How do people get that?
We are a huge believers in self-served products, especially whenever targeting developers. At the moment, startup company going out of stealth, we should focus on our current offering, which is not yet in the point by which everybody can download and play around with our product. But I think we'll get there very soon, so stay tuned.
Okay. I got to bring it up because it's obvious, right? How has the whole COVID situation affected not only coming out of stealth and timing and what to do, but your whole business plan, right? How's it been affected?
Actually, we're pretty positive because it seems that the traffic in the internet is so huge right now that it causes to high volumes and high load within these SaaS companies, which actually leads to more performance issues within their production environments. And here we come into the picture, right? We allow them to troubleshoot performance issues faster, easier. So I think that looking forward, we're gonna see fruits going out from this crisis.
Lemonades out of lemons. Lemonade out of lemons.
Exactly. Hopefully,
I hope so too.
Right?
I try to every day. We're out here interviewing people, doing our thing every day. Alon, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you. So do you still have a chance to go running much?
Oh, I feel embarrassed now, actually.
No.
I used to say that I'm a very totalistic person. So now that I'm dealing with Lightrun, I feel that I don't have enough attention to my, previous career. So I'm still running, but I won't let you hear some figures about my pace and about my current skills.
Well, you don't have to be on top of your game there. This is going to take a lot more of your time, but it's always good to keep
I
moving,
think
keep
I
healthy.
think it's very important to maintain some kind of balance. Of
Yeah.
course, we're entrepreneurs, and it's something that is very easy to say, but we should keep some kind of balance, in our lives in order to
I
maintain.
know all about it. Unfortunately, yes, uh, but that's great. Listen, I want to wish you well with Lightrun. We didn't mention the website.
Lightrun.com, easy.
Lightrun.com. Okay, so people can check it out there. Good luck with Lightrun. You'll keep us posted. Maybe we'll have you back on soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
It really is. It's my pleasure. Ilan Peleg, CEO, co-founder of Lightrun, continuous debugging, new company just out of stealth from Tel Aviv. Thank you, Ilan. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We're going to be right back with our next guest.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey, everyone. Okay, our next interview features two folks, David Habusha, who is Chief Product Officer at WhiteSource, and Paolo Shikarian, who is with a company called Cyricon. That's CRY3Con, I believe, .com. They, WhiteSource and Cyricon recently did a joint survey and issued a joint research report on software security vulnerability prioritization, and we've seen those before, but the interesting twist on this one is it was through the eyes of a hacker. And the point is that what a hacker may feel is really important or really a great, very critical vulnerability may not necessarily be marked as critical by CVE or NIST or what have you, or MITRE, or even by yourselves. So they wanted to give you kind of the hacker eye view of security vulnerability prioritization. It's pretty interesting. Check out the interview and let's see what they have to say.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Okay, for our next segment here on TechStrong TV, I'm really happy to be joined by my friend David Habusha of WhiteSource. David, welcome.
Hi, happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And joining David and I today is a kind of newcomer to our audience here on TechStrong TV, but not to the cyber world. It's Paolo Shikarian. Paolo, did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Paolo, I'm going to let you give the name of your company and how to spell it so that people can look it up, because I'll mess it up.
Thanks, Alan. My company's name is Cyricon, CYR3CON.
CYR number 3 CON, and it's Cyricon. Fantastic. So, Paolo, this is the first time you've been on TechStrong TV. I don't know how much we've covered Cyricon in the past. Why don't you give our audience a little bit of a background, perhaps, on Cyricon?
Yeah, sure. So the company was founded a few years ago. Originally, we were funded through some grant money from the DoD in the United States, as well as the intelligence community. And what we were creating was a new platform to be more proactive in cybersecurity by making predictions on hacker activities in the future. And the way we do that is we have an infrastructure where we mine information from hacker discussions, places like social media, the deep web, dark web, Telegram, Chan sites, several hundred sites. And that information is ingested into a machine learning algorithm. And the main thing that we have in the market right now is a product called Priority that takes those results and use it to predict which software vulnerabilities will be exploited by hackers.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. And David, I don't think White Source needs an introduction to our community. We often do activities and feature you and the rest of the White Source team. But just to settle it up, make it even, give the audience a little bit of the White Source story as well.
Sure. We help organizations develop better software by harnessing the power of open source. We are a solution in the STA, software composition analysis space. We basically help customers detect the open source components being used by their software, find vulnerabilities and license issues, remediate those issues, and continuously scan them through the software development lifecycle, starting from choosing the open source component to writing the code, pushing it to the repo, and even deploying it in a containers orchestration platform.
Excellent. All right. So the news today is that both of your companies have collaborated on a survey that kind of shows, what's the difference, how hackers look at vulnerabilities on your system, or what kind of vulnerabilities, versus how a company looks at the vulnerabilities on your system, correct? Yeah.
Yes, that's the news with the recent report.
Yep. So first of all, tell us, give me some, if you can, maybe some of the demographics on the report.
So we've surveyed about 300 enterprises using software about their processes. How do they look at vulnerabilities? How do they prioritize the remediation, the detection, and then the remediation of those vulnerabilities? And what are the steps that they are taking to do that? In reality, we came up with the list of the most interesting combinations of vulnerability management in enterprises. Just as a background, the survey was asking them, what do they look at when they prioritize vulnerabilities? Just giving you some numbers from survey we did last year. Most companies still do not have an established process or a software in place to do vulnerability prioritizations the way they would like to. So these are all, ideas or realities happening in organizations, not necessarily existing processes or systems that they have.
Got it. And let's talk about a little bit, let's look at what the hackers, when it comes to the vulnerabilities, what are the hackers looking for? Paolo, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so the hacker community is very interesting the way they approach vulnerabilities, because they're looking at a couple different facets. They're looking at what they can exploit that would lead to the ability to perform an attack in which they will make money off of. So they're looking at things such as how hard is this vulnerability to exploit, not necessarily by itself, but compared to other vulnerabilities that have been exploited in the past. Can they build upon that knowledge of what they have done, and can they build upon the knowledge of the community? And that combined with the ability to scale, so it's not only can I exploit the vulnerability, but it's can I integrate that into a malware platform where I can launch a very large attack and infect a lot of systems, and in the long run, making a lot of money doing it. So those are some of their main concerns.
Excellent. And that contrasts with how most companies look at their vulnerabilities, right? And look, I was in the vulnerability management space in 2003 and all the way, through, when they first started coming out with the CVEs and the criticalities and all of these things. And most companies have been sort of trained to look at vulnerabilities based upon their CVE rating. Right, that's how they prioritize, and then some of the more enlightened ones would look at the CVE, criticality, but then kind of match that up to, okay, what's reachable, what's exploitable, what's reachable, and then try to prioritize based on that. But from what you're saying is, though, that may be the way companies react, hackers look at that, they look at the picture very differently, right? They're looking at the picture of what can I use to make money, assuming that it's a financial payday that they're after, right? It's a financial, it's not some kind of state-sponsored cyber attack or something that's looking to knock out critical infrastructure or something non-financially motivated.
No, you're exactly right, Alan. Maybe we should be interviewing you today, but no, you're hitting the nail right on the head. The hackers, they're looking to get a job done. And quite frankly, they have a lot of vulnerabilities to choose from. There's about 1,000 new CVEs released each month. And on top of that, companies are struggling so much in their vulnerability management programs is every company has a backlog of vulnerabilities that haven't been remediated. So often hackers are able to find even old vulnerabilities that there will still be a lot of systems out there that will have those and be worthwhile for them to develop exploits. But you're right, there's definitely an asymmetry between how the defenders look at the problem and how the attackers look at the problem.
Yep. So, David, when we look at a white source offering, for instance, right? How do where's the actionable intelligence from this survey? How does this change how you advise your customers and prioritize, different vulnerabilities?
I think that at the end of the day, organizations will have something I like to call a prioritization funnel. So they look at a few different areas to tell the forest from the trees. They have, as Paulo mentioned, hundreds or thousands of vulnerabilities. I would say that the common app that we're scanning would have 200 to 300 vulnerabilities, and this is just one app. So they will start, of course, by their most sensitive apps, the ones that are facing the world, the commercial, financial systems, leaving, without, trying to diminish the value, but the food ordering system or the HR system behind, because they're not as critical as the ones that people can actually steal money or steal some personal information from. And then they will look at the criticality and the impact of those vulnerabilities based on the CVSS score. Coming CVSS 3.1, the impact is the most important aspect of providing the score to a vulnerability. But I would say that even by doing that, they still have a slew of vulnerabilities that they need to tackle, and they will look for more sophisticated ways of addressing only the most critical ones, and then they will be looking at the ones that are actually exploitable, and the ones that their code is actually vulnerable to, meaning their vulnerable lines of code are actually being called by their applications. And those are the ones that they will tackle first. I would say that most organizations today do only part of this process, and they do it manually. But I imagine that all of this will turn into systems with policies and some kind of a visualization or a dashboard of a prioritization funnel at some point in the future.
Excellent. I think it has to. It also, it makes, so look, when I was doing vulnerability management 10 years ago, 15 years ago, more, it was something of a bad news generator, right? The organizations would say, "Oh goodness, look at all of these vulnerabilities," but there was almost like a detachment from the real world, right? And so, when you look at surveys like this, I think it helps us sort of understand truly the mind of the hacker, right? That hackers, we're always looking for the hacker's eye view, right? But you can't have the hacker's eye view without understanding the mind of the hacker, the motivation of the hacker, and so these sort of things help us with that. Any other revelations in the report, though, that you saw that kind of caught your eyes?
I think that looking at common weakness enumeration, CWEs, is really interesting. I think that, as Paulo mentioned, building on previous knowledge of successful attacks, even though you would think that SQL injection or cross-site scripting and all that is solved by patching systems and so on. Still, hackers at the end of the day are looking for the fastest way to exploit the system using some known attacks. And they're looking for the most common CWEs to build upon previous attacks that worked well, and maybe to enhance them a little bit to create a new attack that would be available to penetrate into systems. And they will also look at the most common platforms or frameworks, the ones that are being used by many organizations. The most usual suspects are Apache Struts and Spring, and the ones that are usually being hacked by those hackers.
No,
Absolutely.
I'd like to build on it a little bit.
Sure.
So, that the results that we got in the report they make a lot of sense, because when you think of how hackers in their meritocracy-driven society organize themselves, it's become very narrow in which hacker groups develop vulnerabilities, and they specialize along the lines of operating system, platform, and even tactics. So, for example, you see, guys who are more trying to develop exploits that will be used by kind of the lower end of the pool, experimenting a lot with different cross-site scripting techniques. And you see at the other end of the spectrum, more sophisticated actors who are using different things. And the way they organize themselves by those categories is reflected in the results of the study.
Yep. And that's another thing that, maybe some of our cyber audience is aware. A lot of our DevOps and cloud native audience may not be aware, is that there really is sort of this hierarchy, if you will, in the hacker community of, you have your kind of pure researchers, right, who find exploits and then kind of weaponize them. And then there's a bourgeoisie class, right, of merchants who take these exploitable and weaponized vulnerabilities and then kind of sell them to, people perhaps who aren't that sophisticated, but can, buy that weaponized hacker tool and use it against various targets to make money out of, right? You'd get one really, really bright guy or group, and then it gets disseminated. There's a whole economy, if you will, right, of this black web of hackers who, are utilizing basically someone else's work, but still exploiting sites with it.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, there's a whole economy built around this stuff. And, it's advantageous for hackers who are interested in writing exploits to focus on that, because that reduces their risk. If someone else is taking the time to actually commit the crime using stuff they bought from the exploit writer, all the better for the exploit writer.
Sure. So what's the answer, guys? We're coming up to the end of our time. Let's give our listeners, can we give them 3 good things that they could do to try to help safeguard here?
I think that creating a process around vulnerability prioritization based on the most important factors, I think that the business criticality of the app and the impact to the enterprise's system is one that you cannot ignore. The severity of a vulnerability, plus looking at the exploitability and whether it's really effective to my system, can narrow it down to a manageable list of vulnerabilities that you need to remediate immediately, and you can also automate this process, not just the prioritization, but also the remediation. So try to do that as fast as you can, because hackers today know that there's a window of opportunities between the published date of a vulnerability and the time the system has been patched to prevent that vulnerability. This is what they build upon. So you would like to do that as fast as you can, focus on the ones that really matter and patch them, remediate them as soon as you can, and have a process in place also for the secondary list of vulnerabilities. Look into processes and systems that can help you do that, because that's just unmanageable in a manual way, or just putting a whole lot of security analysts will not solve the problem. It's not scalable, so look into ways of automating that. That's my 2 cents.
Paolo, you got 3 cents, so we make a nickel here.
Yeah, I would say David's definitely right in setting up a process to build on that. With some of our clients, we've seen a big trend toward vulnerability management teams working in concert with DevOps to ensure that they understand what those priorities are. And we see that the best teams are doing that, and they're establishing a process.
Fair enough. Guys, I assume the survey's available at both sites, both White Source. Yeah? Paolo, I'm going to ask you one more time before we leave for our listeners, your company name and the website.
Our company name is Cyricon, and visit cyr3con.ai.
Perfect. .ai. Perfect. All right. David, Paolo, thanks for joining us on TechStrong TV. Good work on this survey. I think there's some real actionable items out here for our audience to take a look at. Have a look at the survey. Do what you need to do. Stay protected. This is Alan Schimmel, and we're out.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more. ContainerJournal.com is operated by MediaOps Inc., the team behind DevOps.com, Digital Anarchist, SecurityBoulevard.com, DevOps Connect, and DevOpsDozen.com.
Back here in the studio, as I mentioned at the top of the show, our friends at Puppet have released a public beta of what promises to be a really great new product from them. It's called Puppet Relay. And though it's new, I really, in listening to Alex Bilmes from Puppet explain it, and he's been, leading this project, I really just felt, this was such a natural for Puppet. It really was an extension to what made Puppet great to begin with, which was the ability to automate at first was configuration management, which allowed us to automate provisioning, right, of instances on the cloud, servers, etc. Now we can automate workloads, right, up on the cloud. And it flows from what Puppet does. It's at the essence of Puppet. So I think this is a great new product from them. It is in public beta. It's not GA, and they're looking for people to use it and feedback and the stuff. But this isn't some alpha disguised as a beta either. It's pretty full featured, and you should check it out. But let's go to our interview with Alex Belmis from Puppet to find out more about Puppet Relay.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on this segment of TechStrong TV. I'm joined right now by Alex Belmis of Puppet. And Puppet released some news this past Wednesday, and we're going to be going over it. Hey Alex, how are you?
Good, Alan. Good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on, man. So Alex, Puppet needs no introduction to our DevOps.com audience. We've been covering Puppet pretty much since day one here at DevOps.com. But day one of DevOps.com, Puppet is actually a much older company. We've only been doing DevOps.com for about 7 years now. And Puppet was already a DevOps household name when we started, so. But Alex, what about you? What do you do at Puppet? Kind of what's your background?
I am the VP of Growth at Puppet, and right now I'm mostly focused on the Relay initiative, which I'll talk about in a bit. But I came to Puppet through acquisition. I was the CEO and co-founder of a data visualization startup called Reflect. And before that, I was on the founding team of a company called Cloudability. So I bring cloudy things to Puppet.
Very cool. Well, Puppet was always cloudy, right? I mean, in many ways, Puppet and Puppet's contemporaries enabled so much of what we see in the cloud when, to spin up servers, or not servers, spin up instances, right? Yeah. In rapid fire, the whole configuration management thing. But VP of growth. So is that sales, marketing related, growth of product? Where do you?
Mostly growth of product. I grow things, and right now the focus is on product and Relay. And I actually wanted to just jump on that one point that you made, which I think is exactly right, and that Puppet has been fundamental in companies adopting cloud, and Relay is sort of the extension of that for us. So as you are well aware, Puppet has always been known for model-driven automation, and Puppet has extended from there into task-driven automation. And so Relay is the extension of that into event-driven automation, which is how we see a lot of cloud-native teams work. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense to me, man. So, Puppet Relay. You know what? I know you guys released some news on Wednesday, but let's maybe set the table a little bit about Puppet Relay, and then we can get into the news. That makes good, yeah? That's the path I think we'll take. So let's do that. Puppet Relay, what is it? Why do people care?
Yeah, Relay is a event-driven automation platform. And what that means is we listen to signals and events from all types of tools and services that the customers already use. So an example of that could be a monitoring system, say a Splunk capacity alert firing, or a Datadog monitoring alert going off, or a new EC2 instance coming online, say within AWS, or an instance coming online within any other public cloud provider. And so from there, we're able to trigger a workflow. And a workflow has a number of different steps that users can arrange in whatever order they see fit. A step could be something like provisioning a Kubernetes cluster as an example, or just an environment, or a step could be notifying somebody within a Slack channel that they need to log in and do something. And so Relay is really all about orchestrating across the various services, tools, and APIs that our customers already use.
Very cool. All right. I think I don't know. We'll dive more into this during our discussion, but let's now just go over the news that came out on Wednesday, and we'll bring it all together.
Sure, yeah. So on Wednesday, we announced the public beta of Relay, and that means that anybody that has access to an internet browser can go to relay.sh. They can sign up for a free account, and they can start running workflows in their cloud environments. And so we've been working on this for the past few months. We're very excited about the launch. And it's been a ton of fun. The team's been having a ton of fun getting it out.
Sure. And look, there are a lot of people in our audience who kind of work at tech vendors, so they know what goes into rolling out a new service or product, and even just getting to a public beta, let alone a GA, right? It's a lot of work, man, right? It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into it. But for those in our audience who are end users, the kind of people who will sign up for this public beta, it's not, even though it has the word beta on it, no one puts out in this day and age, right? It used to be betas were for guinea pigs, but that's not the case anymore. That's alphas or even internal stuff, right? Today, when a company like Public puts out a public beta, these products are... No one's claiming they're finished, otherwise they wouldn't be. But they're very, very functional and pretty stable, reliable tools. We're looking for more customer feedback and performance. We know the underlying kind of what you're going to get, hopefully, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Some commentary on public beta has included Gmail being in beta for, I think it was something like 5 years, but that's shifted quite a bit recently, right? So we do have customers that are running Relay in production. We've been in private beta for quite some time, and have collected a great amount of feedback that's helped us shape the product. The reason that we're releasing the beta more publicly is we're looking for broader feedback. And to your point, we're also encouraging the community to participate in the actual creation of content and workflows that Relay can run. So as an example, all of the workflows that Relay is able to operate are open source. And so we've shipped over 30 workflows that people can use right out of the box. Those are things like security workflows, incident response workflows, continuous delivery workflows, general cloud operations workflows. And so by opening the beta up more broadly, we're encouraging our community to join and write workflows that they can also share with other community members, and help create value, which is really exciting for early adopters. And so early adopters for us are more than just people to give us passive feedback. They usually get involved and really help us shape the community and the product.
Excellent. When you look at the history of Puppet, right, and so going back 7-8 years, configuration management automation, right? I could just spin up instances, and every single one would be a clone of the next, or to my own, exact specifications, to my own script, if you will. Now let's fast forward now to today, Relay. We're looking to do a similar kind of thing, except now with workflows around like some of the stuff you're talking about, security and other things. So again, it's that automation which allows us to scale, right? Kind of really big. But it goes beyond just configuration management. Now we're getting into the workflow of application of how things function. So it kind of takes what Puppet used to do and expands it, to layers above pure, server or instance configuration.
Yeah, you just nailed it. Relay is doing a very Puppety thing, but in the context of cloud, and I'll walk you through.
I like the way you did that. Cool.
Yeah, it's very, very Puppety. So if you look at configuration management in the era of, say, a data center, you tweak a ton of knobs and dials on an operating system. So you have a Linux operating system or Windows operating system or whatever other OS, right? Now, if you look at configuration management in the context of cloud, it's a smaller part of the automation surface area. And what I mean by that is an operating system might be in an instance, meaning within a VM, and that instance then is provisioned through, say, EC2's API as an example. And so configuration management, while it's still important, is a smaller part of the automation surface area. But now you've got that EC2 instance, then you've got databases, and then you've got CI/CD tools, and you've got a number of other APIs that you have to automate across. And so to your point, the automation challenges sort of go up a level. And so orchestrating across all those various different APIs and services is where we see customers struggling and where the challenges are right now. So our approach was, well, Puppet was always really good at taking a lot of complex things and simplifying them through an easy to understand abstraction. And we're going to do the same thing, but now instead of 10 things, we have 100 things or hundreds of things that we need to simplify. So integrations become increasingly more important. And to your point, workflows become increasingly more important.
I agree. It really has. So usually with betas, public beta, companies want feedback from customers as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned adding, non-open source workflows is one thing you guys are looking for. What are you looking for in terms of other, kind of traditional feedback, even bug reports or stuff like that?
Open source workflows are hugely valuable. We have a GitHub repository where people can use the ones that we have available and also contribute their own. Feedback on the product itself is always incredibly valuable. One of the things that we're continuously evolving is the concept of event-driven. And so one of the things that's unique about Relay is the way that it can combine the external events from all types of systems directly with the workflow engine. So we're very reactive to an event that comes in from a different system, which is a little bit different than more traditional workflow tools. So for us, it's helping build out the types of triggers and the types of events that people want to respond to, not just the workflows themselves, but really looking at the various alerts or signals or events that come out of the tools that they use, and help us build out the triggers as well as the workflows.
Got it. So when do you anticipate coming? It might be 5 years like Gmail, but I hope not. When do you anticipate sort of moving from beta into a GA version 1.0?
Not 5 years. I can say that.
Please tell me that.
Definitively. We're not setting a date right now. A lot of that will depend on the feedback that we get from customers during public beta. We stay very close to the customers and we listen to their feedback. So as we hear more from them, we'll put out a date for a GA.
So Alex, you're an entrepreneur. You've co-founded, and all of that. And I have too. I've never met an entrepreneur though who didn't get excited by what they were working on was going to be in some small way changing the world, right? How do you think Puppet Beta can, at least in some small way, change the world?
That's a good question. I get personally frustrated when people do repetitive, non-unique things, meaning non-differentiated things. And I think that people, our civilization should focus on incrementally moving ourselves forward and not reinvent the wheel. And so the thing that excites me about Relay is if we can automate a lot of the repetitive, soul-crushing and manual error-prone work that people have to do, they can focus on the better stuff, the more interesting stuff, the stuff that humans were meant to do, creative things. And so from that perspective, I'm excited by what we as a human civilization can accomplish if we could automate the mundane. And I think to your earlier point, that's the same mission that Puppet has had for a while. And so being able to evolve that mission in today's day and age is really exciting to me.
I don't disagree with you at all. And So I think back to early on in DevOps.com history when I first launched. I did I guess it was a podcast or an interview with Luke, the Puppet founder, and he said, we think so much is going to be automated in the years, and in 2020, he said, I don't know if it's going to be 20 years, 30 years, but software is going to write software, right? It'll all kind of be automated, but that doesn't mean the end of humans. It means humans will be doing other things, right? Better things and more valuable things. And I think back, this is so in line with Luke's vision, right? 7-8 years ago.
Luke's a friend. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for Luke and his vision. And he was instrumental in helping us think through a lot of Relay and how it relates to Puppet and the core vision. I will tell you, I'm really bad at predicting timelines. If I was good at it, I'd be a lot wealthier than I am today. So I try not to.
You and me both.
Right. I try not to predict that. I do agree with Luke in that as some of the mundane gets automated, people are able to do the things that I think we were put on this earth to do. And there will always be more new, interesting things, and those things will change, meaning the things that we do will look a little different in 10 years than they do today. But I think that's just part of the natural evolution that we have to go through. Agreed.
Sounds good, man. Alex, I tell you, the time goes quick when we do these interviews. We're at our time here, but hey, you know what we didn't mention? Where can people go do the join the beta and download this and find out more?
Yeah, so relay.sh is where people can sign up for the beta, and it's relay.sh. It's a cool, hip domain. It's very modern and innovative. So if people go to that URL, there's a sign up for beta link directly on the website. People can get started right away.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Hey, Alex, thanks so much for joining us on TechStrong TV. Puppet Relay at relay.sh, right?
That's exactly right.
Check it out. It could well be, the sanity it saves could be your own. Hey, man, Alex, best of luck with this. Keep us posted. Come back on and tell us how things are going with it, okay?
Thanks, Alan. Will do. I appreciate the time, and thanks for having me on the show.
It's our pleasure. Alex Bilmes from Puppet about Puppet Relay. Go check it out. This is Alan Schimmel. We're going to be right back with our next guest here on TechStrong TV.
I got the burgers. I went to Bun Barn, Beef Patty Palace, Tomato Town.
Oh, thanks for getting all this, honey.
Yeah, no problem. Getting all of it just took about 2 hours.
I just wish there was an easier way to get all your burger fixings from one place,
Wow.
Dad, you didn't go to Mayo King?
You know our car doesn't fit in their drive-thru. I went to Mustard Chef.
I hate this burger.
He also went to ketchup.
When you're building something using components that don't work together easily, things could get ugly, fast. You wouldn't live like this, so don't make your DevOps team live like this.
This lack of burger cohesion is hard on all of us, Cheryl.
GitLab is the only single application for the entire DevOps lifecycle.
Right, moving along here on this Monday. Our next segment is our Something Old segment, and as has been the case this whole month, we are featuring our TechStrong Con presentations. There were 50 great ones up there, so we'll be featuring them for some time. This next one, though, features a good friend of mine. I first met Helen Beal shortly after launching DevOps.com. I think within maybe, 6 months of launching DevOps.com, I actually flew over to London and did a small DevOps, not a conference, but a gathering that was put on by Helen's company, and Helen was there. And we've become friends ever since. We stay in touch and always enjoy seeing Helen, usually on the DevOps conference circuit. And of course, don't see her as much in person anymore because who travels? But Helen has also taken on a greater and greater role with the DevOps Institute, which, Media Ops is, of course, a founder of. And so I get to interact with Helen, not as much as I'd like, but often enough to stay in touch. Anyway, we were delighted Helen was able to present at TechStrong Con. And Helen's presentation was on DevOps, community, and capitalism. And she really talked about sort of the twin or the dual movements within DevOps. One is this community volunteerism, and one is the commercial viability and, of having to have revenue in order to keep businesses open. So Helen talks about that. I think and how they're not necessarily diametrically opposed. You can have both. But anyway, I'm going to let Helen explain it. Here's Helen Beal from TechStrong.com on DevOps, community, and capitalism.
Hi, I'm Helen Beal, and today I'm going to be talking about community and capitalism. A little about me, first of all. So first and foremost, I am a human. I am Chief Ambassador at the DevOps Institute. I also write about DevOps for InfoKey. I'm also an ambassador for Continuous Delivery Foundation and Analyst at Accelerator Strategies. I'm a ways of working, a WOW coach, speaker, and learning facilitator. And there's lots of other things you could know about me. I really like working with words. I'm a volunteer warden at a local national nature reserve called Kingley Vale, near where I live in Chichester in the south of England. It's very beautiful, amazing yew forest, lots of sites of scientific interest there, lots of butterflies and chalkland. I once saw a flamingo lay an egg. And I can dig an olive ridley turtle nest, but really my mission today and my mission in my working life is about bringing joy to the workplace. And that's what I'm going to focus in on today. So I want to start at the start, the dawn of DevOps. So DevOps started in Ghent in 2009. And the reason I bring this up in the context of community and capitalism is that the DevOps Days events, that this is where DevOps started, are very much community driven. They're driven by volunteers, they're very self-organizing. And DevOps really started with that spirit of being a movement of practitioners who wanted to create a community and share their thinking and knowledge expertise for the betterment of everybody in that community and around the world. And what happened after that initial DevOps Days in 2009 was that it spread globally, massively. You can see here just some examples of some really beautiful and creative logos that people have put together. I've attended a couple in London, and I was also lucky enough to be at this one here in the middle, the 10-year event, 10-year anniversary event last October in 2019. And it was just fantastic to see the community coming together. And again, just the power and the passion of the sharing that people want to do. Following the first one in Mountain View, which was run mainly by John Willis and Damon Edwards, John Willis now at Red Hat and Damon Edwards, CEO of Rundeck, they came up with this acronym. I often refer to it as an elevator acronym, in that it's like an elevator pitch. So if you were stuck in a lift with somebody and wanted to explain to them quite quickly what DevOps was about, you could use CALMS, this acronym, to denote culture, automation, lean, measurement, and sharing. I've put the S in blue there today to highlight that that's really where I'm going to focus the chat today. I may mention some things around automation and measurement and other things, but really we're going to think about the S in CALMS, the sharing. You can also see on this slide the front cover of Beyond the Phoenix Project. Many of you, I hope, will have read or at least heard of the Phoenix Project. You may even played some games or experiential learning based on the Phoenix Project. Of course, it's a novel about DevOps. And it was kind of based on another book by Eliyahu Goldratt called The Goal. And after The Goal was published, they did an audio project called Beyond the Goal. And similarly, Gene Kim, the main author of the Phoenix Project and the author of the Unicorn Project, along with John Willis, who I just mentioned as one of the organisers of the first DevOps Days in Mountain View, one of the progenitors of the CALMS acronym, also did an audio project. It's incredibly informative, the whole thing. It's about 7.5, 8 hours of audio and chatting between mainly Gene Kim and John Willis, but also some other people like Dr. Stephen Spear and people like that. But the conclusion is they really come to is that these organizations that are succeeding in this DevOps marketplace that have these practitioners are dynamic learning organizations. And this is kind of about sharing. How do we learn? We learn from each other. And it's quite remarkable, I think, how open organizations are in particular about sharing their experiences. So obviously we're part of the TechStrong Con today. There are lots of other examples of other industry leading events. So I've put a few of them up here. We've got the DevOps Online Summit run by Tom Henriksen. We've got the DevOps Enterprise Summit run by IT Revolution. We've got DevOps World, Jenkins World by CloudBees. We've got DevOps Con by Jax. We've got the Skill Up Day, one-day micro conferences coming out from the DevOps Institute at the moment. And we've got all-day DevOps by the wonderful people at Sonotype as well. So many wonderful people making such an effort to bring these communities together so that people can share their stories, again, for the betterment of the greater good, so people can learn from it. And I think this is quite significant in the context of capitalism, because capitalism has traditionally been very profit focused and very enclosed and proprietary a lot of the time, and people haven't been very good about sharing their trade secrets or what's really happening at their organization. So it's been really fascinating to have the opportunity over the last few years to hear from very large global organizations, Target, Walmart, Standard Chartered Bank, Lloyds Banking Group, Lego, hundreds and hundreds of organizations that have represented, that have had representation at these events, have talked about their stories. And it's really powerful because the stories are not just inspiring other companies to do the kind of things that we're talking about, so to stand up version control and explore continuous integration, continuous delivery, to learn about enterprise Kubernetes and containerization, to figure out what a strangler pattern means in terms of loosely coupling their architectures. There's all of this technical information that's being shared and all of this leadership and process information as well. So we can look to organizations like RBS sharing about how their leadership have handled pushing autonomy and distributing authority through their organization. We can look to the likes of Barclays for helping us understand how they've approached things like moving away from a traditional project management office and helping move towards a more product-centric environment and linking all the way up from a user story to a CEO's goals. There's so much that has been shared. And not only is it inspiring, it can also be quite reassuring. So I think from my personal experiences consulting with lots of organizations, often there's a feeling that people are really behind the curve and they're not doing very well, and that can be really demotivating for people. So it's really good to be able to hear from peers in the market that these problems and patterns are really common and we're all trying to deal with the same things. We are all in this together, and if we work together and we share this information, we can all improve and all benefit from the collective intelligence and experience. So most recently, I've had a fantastic opportunity to do some work as a Chief Ambassador at DevOps Institute, as I mentioned on the first slide. And it's been an incredible experience. I've been learning so much about pioneers around the world, people like me, people that are passionate about DevOps and passionate about bringing meaning to work, and sharing it and building a community of people that we don't compete with. We're a community and we share information for everybody's best life, if you like. So I put a couple of things up on here. On the left, we've got a bit of a LinkedIn conversation that happened after we had our first virtual meetup with the ambassadors. And you can see Jack, one of the ambassadors there, saying, such a great group of folks. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to share and learn with such smart and passionate people that really care and show it with what they do and not just words. And that resonated so deeply with me, this idea of working with people that do genuinely care about what we're doing and genuinely want to make the world a better place as a result. And similarly from Mark and Ernest, also other ambassadors. On the right, we've got a picture here of Amanda Pinto, who's one of our ambassadors, and I'll talk more about her in a minute, but she's here at the 10-year DevOps Days event in Ghent that I mentioned, I also had the opportunity to attend last year, which was amazing. And she was with, of course, Patrick Dubois, who started the whole thing off. He was the progenitor of DevOps Days and therefore the whole DevOps movement. So this was a really significant moment for Amanda. And Amanda is Brazilian. This is one of the most incredible things about working with the DevOps Institute ambassadors, is they are completely global. And I quite often start my day with a chat with Malaysia and maybe the Philippines, and then maybe some Europeans during the course of the day, and then finish off with Brazil and some of Latin America towards the end of the day. And of course, we have ambassadors with New Zealand and Australia as well. And very recently, we got our first ones in Africa. We now have a few in South Africa and one in Zimbabwe as well. So it's this incredible global community of these like-minded people. But I did particularly want to highlight Amanda, and I've put the URL to her particular blog post here on this side so you can read up yourself. Now, Amanda is from Belo Horizonte in Brazil, and she, in this blog post, tells her entire end-to-end story about how she got into the DevOps community and all the people that have helped her along the way, and how she's created a community of over 3,000 people in Belo Horizonte through her own DevOps days there. And she's stood up DevOps Bootcamp now as well. But there are so many things that I want to share that Amanda says, but she says things like, when I chose this profession, I was always sure that I wanted to be different in any area I was going to act in. I wanted to leave a touch of lightness, or just demonstrate that many cool things could be done just for the love of what you believe. Amanda is a very warm human being. She talks about love and hugs a lot, and it's just really amazing to see somebody bring so much warmth and so much positivity and energy to this community. She goes on to say that she went in search of more knowledge. So she was learning, she was yearning to understand people, politics, behaviors, and the vanities of human beings. So she really recognizes that when we talk about DevOps, we're not just talking about a DevOps toolchain. We're not just talking about transitioning to cloud or transitioning to product. We are really talking about a bunch of humans and understanding how we behave and why that matters when we're trying to change the way that we work. She surrounded herself with people that believe in this same purpose. So she created a community. There were so many friends. So she made friends as well. It's more than just working colleagues. It was a really solid social community for her, and she learned so much. Again, this union of people with the same goal, talking about technology, but disseminating this knowledge, practicing the automation, collaborating and innovating. And she says there is no luck. There are choices and courage. There is desire and a lot of work, focus and dedication, and meeting the purpose with people who believe in the same values as you. So she's totally tuned in to this idea of building a community of people with this common purpose who are willing to share, willing to learn from each other, all with the same goal of making improvement at a global level. Just a quick bit about DevOps Institute. We are focused on advancing human elements of DevOps by equipping them with skills, knowledge, ideas, and learning. You can join for free, and we develop and accredit and orchestrate skill through these certifications, research and learning opportunities and events and community connections that are going on. And they're not the only people that are trying to give back and encourage communities of people to dedicate part of their working lives to practices that help disseminate knowledge. As I mentioned, I'm also a writer at InfoQ. InfoQ have a culture of giving back. It's a living community that's made possible by the editors, with this, again, passion coming through again, and this accelerating the human side of software development. So we're really making this connection between our bits and bytes and our emotions and our feelings. We're really talking about bringing joy to work via technology. There are many other examples. This is the Dojo Consortium that I've recently become involved with. Again, representatives from Enterprise Dojo. So people that traditionally might have considered themselves in competition with each other, but are recognizing that they have common passion and common purpose, and they want to come together and share that with the wider community so that everybody can benefit from it. Another one I mentioned, I'm also ambassador at CD Foundation. It's relatively new, it's Continuous Delivery Foundation. Again, what you're seeing here is the TOC, the Technical Oversight Committee, and just at this top level, we've got Netflix, Google, CloudBees, and Verizon. So again, representation from some very large organizations that are, in some respects are competing, and in some respects in here they are cooperating and wanting to create models and patterns and ways that the whole community can benefit from the best practices and the best thinking that we have in the community and in the world today. Many of you may be DevRels or have DevRels in your organization, so developer relationship people. So this recognition that when we are selling these days, in the old days, if you were selling software, you would traditionally be a salesperson selling potentially to the top levels of the IT organization within a company. So you'd be trying to target the CIO, and you would be spending a lot of time with procurement. Because we have the internet now and it's possible to download things and try them for free or for very small amounts of money, the selling process has changed. So actually the connection in the community for the capitalist function here in terms of where the money is going to change hands is often at the developer level now. So this has been recognized, and this whole new community is burgeoning around DevRel, where we have people that are specifically tasked and paid to specifically help the developers, the people at the front line who are using software to help them make the decisions about what's going to be best for them and their organization. So there's a real shift in the communities, and I just wanted to mention this one last one, which is the Neuro Leadership Institute. And this is like a little bit outside perhaps of some of the DevOps world, but I've really enjoyed doing a small amount of work with them that started after I read a book many years ago now, when I was trying to put together a breakfast briefing around DevOps goals and rewards and motivation. And I came across a book called Your Brain at Work by David Rock, who heads up the Neuro Leadership Institute, where he talked about the neuroscience of motivation. And he basically has this SCARF model that says that at work, we're all motivated by broadly one of 5 things, SCARF standing for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So it's this idea, and again, this connection, this big words here, using science to make organizations more human. So the human word keeps on coming up, trying to understand our brains. So I've become very interested in neuroscience over recent years, and I've written quite extensively and talked quite a lot about it and how leaders need to use it in the workplace to make change and behavioral change happen. So talking about behavior and humans and the way that we operate, there's kind of 2 concepts here: altruism, so selflessness, giving to other people, and then avarice, so greed and self-protectionism. And I've drawn them at opposite ends of the scale, but I was thinking about this and thinking actually back to Henry Knieberg's original Spotify engineering videos and the autonomy and alignment question. And it's occurred to me that really altruism and avarice are much more like this, which is how Spotify also drew out autonomy and alignment. And, you know, I haven't done a kind of matrix here about showing what it feels like to be in these different spots, but, you know, the sweet spot's probably somewhere here. As humans, we have learned over the years, I'm going to look at some revolutions in a minute, but we've learned over the years that giving often means receiving. We all have bills to pay, so there has to be an element of self-preservation, but it has to be balanced with scratching someone else's back and having your own back scratched. So there's kind of this concept of give to get. So when we think about these DevOps communities, these ambassador programs, these institutes that are set up, all of these events that are run like this one, asking ourselves why we give so much and what we're expecting to get from it, I think is not an unfair question. So if we give knowledge and models to people, we do get learning, because the chances are someone else will have a comment on our model. I remember many years ago, I put up a very linear model of the SDLC and kind of showed dev on one side and ops on the other. And someone said that actually it didn't look very DevOps, in that it was very A to B. And actually that's made me think of things in a much more circular way, which I've worked with many clients on, thinking about things in a much more cyclical way. So you get, as you share, you get feedback, which helps you expand your learning. When we do things like this, when we speak and write, these new ideas lead to new customers. You know, this leads to a new audience of people, or maybe even an existing audience finding out something new about me, or something new that I found out about the market that I've shared with them, and they want to work with me or any organization that's talking about this kind of thing. if we give time, we get the opportunity to network. We get this opportunity to meet all of these wonderful people that share the meaning and share the purpose that we have and feel the same passions. If I'm part of a large enterprise, then it gives me the opportunity to attract more talent into my enterprise. So it helps me be more successful. If I share skills, that will bring opportunities to me. If I share support and help, I get support and help. And similarly, if I give joy, I receive joy back because people reflect on us. We have mirror neurons in our brain. And that means that we receive these kind of emotions back, and we meet like-minded people. So just changing tack for a little bit, I want to talk about revolutions and evolution and the relationship between the two, and kind of how we've got here at this point. So I can't recommend this book highly enough. I've just recently read it. It's called Sapiens, it's a Brief History of Humankind, and it talks about these three revolutions: the cognitive revolution, then the agriculture, and the scientific revolution. The pertinence of these revolutions in the context of community and capitalism is that the cognitive revolution really allowed us to work in groups, and quite small groups initially. So this is when we were still very nomadic hunter-gatherers. So we had a very mixed diet. We would move around according to seasons. We would just eat, pretty much whatever we could get our hands on. And then we had the agricultural revolution, which meant that we learned how to farm things, and typically the vegetables initially more than the livestock and things. So this had some advantages in that it meant we didn't need to be so nomadic. So we were able to maybe build a bit more luxury around us. It also meant that we didn't need to space babies out so often. Actually, we could have more babies because we were in one place, so it was easier to look after them, which meant that we created settlements, so larger communities, and we had more children, and we needed more children because we now needed to work off the land. But in a way, it didn't do us some favours, because from a community perspective, we put ourselves under more pressure. And you can see it now. It's like all these technological advances that we've had, and it feels like we're all working harder than we ever had. And this is what started to happen with the agricultural revolution. We ended up working harder than we ever had. We ended up actually having a not very varied diet, because we tend to eat what we farmed. And we also lived in much larger communities, and these communities became bigger and bigger, which meant, and this will resonate, I'm sure, with lots of people around the world at the moment, it meant that disease was a lot more transmissible between these much larger, tightly connected and not particularly nomadic and moving around communities. So it's interesting to think about how human community has changed even over the tens of thousands of years. But then let's look at more recently. But before we do that, I just wanted to draw your attention to icons. A slight transgression here, or diversion. They're really beautiful, right? In order to use them for free, I have to attribute them, which I've done here. And that got me thinking about this business model. So all these amazing artists are putting these incredible icons on flat icon that I can use for free in my presentations if I attribute them. So that's a wonderful example of people giving IP, giving knowledge and skills away. And you're wondering what they get. Well, if you want to use a lot of icons and you don't want to attribute them, then you pay a small subscription fee to the site. And this is exactly the kind of business model that we're increasingly working towards. Not a multi-million pound contract signed every 3 years, but this much more subscription-based, value-based model where things are properly utilised. This idea of shelfware, which happened for a long time in the enterprise software industry, is really starting to fade away. So back to the revolutions. This one is from Carlota Perez, who talks about these 5 industrial revolutions. And we're now in this 5th one, the age of telecoms, information and telecoms. According to Carlota, we're actually at the turning point of the revolution, so on the precipice of a golden age. Her keys to the golden age are going to be about social responsibility and the green approach. So whilst we're all obviously and quite understandably extremely concerned about the pandemic at the moment, there are other crises on the horizon, and we heard a lot about climate change prior to what started kicking off in December, and it will come back again. So green and social and government support are going to be key for us getting into the golden age. Interestingly, I talked about this research from Carlota Perez when I was at Agile DevOps East on the stage back in November. And one of the things that Carlotta has noticed in her research is that each of these revolutions is typically characterized by a recession in the middle. And in fact, at the time of me speaking in November, we'd already experienced 2 recessions in this particular cycle. So we'd seen the dot-com bubble burst, and we'd also seen the economic crash caused to the subprime mortgage situation. I stood on stage and said I didn't see us having a third one, but I did also qualify that by saying I'm absolutely not an economist. Of course, we now are experiencing another recession for reasons that I don't think any of us had really anticipated at that time. But good news, we're on this precipice of this golden age. So what we really need to do as a community is focus on how to bring joy to the workplace as part of this time, not cage ourselves, not give us more work to do, but actually make people's lives better, make those 8 hours plus a day that we spend at work more enjoyable, more productive, more meaningful. So this is the World Economic Forum for the Davos revolutions. For a long time, they talked about the 4th Industrial Revolution, which is this AI, big data, robotics, IoT, and blockchain and crypto one. And they're now starting to see this 5th revolution people are starting to talk about, which is the connection of frontier tech to purpose and inclusivity. Sounds a lot like connecting tech to community to me. And in fact, there's this article that's linked to in the slides that talks from Jim and Lawrence, and they both make these comments that in contrast to the 4th revolution, this time best practices have been bent back toward the service of humanity by the champions of the 5th. And similarly, Lawrence says, you know, most of the conferences was like, what's the next big tech thing? And now we're most asked, you know, what's the smart money tech trend? And now he's saying it's not blockchain, Bitcoin, or AI, it is humanity. So hugely positive messages coming out of these systems and these researchers on revolution. And I just wanted to finish with this note from the chaps at Corporate Rebels. So Eust wrote a blog post, which is again linked in the slide material, talking about capitalism and the revolutions of capitalism, and how when we started in 1930, it was all about the managerial approach, so the structure and the organization and things like that. And then in the 1980s, the shareholder became king, and it was all about creating shareholder value. More recently, in the last decade, we finally listened to Peter Drucker and finally made the customer up front and center. But the next stage that we're calling out is what we're calling community capitalism, which brings me in a nice clean circle back around to where I started with community and capitalism. These things might seem in contention, but they're really not. And actually, I believe as we move forward, they're going to be tighter and tighter tied together. And the way that we will make profits will be clearly based on the way that we serve our communities and how our communities are built and how our communities are able to interact with each other and share the learnings for the greater good of the one species that all humans are. So thank you very much today for your time and attention. I hope you found it useful. You can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, or my Twitter handle was right at the start. Stay human. Thank you for listening.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
Thanks so much to Helen for doing TechStrong Con for us. I hope you enjoyed her presentation. It's that time of the day here on Monday now where we're going to do the news. And, you know, our news is really headlines from around the Media Ops site of articles that are fresh today. As usual, not meant to be exhaustive. Go check out the sites, please. But let me give you a couple of pointers to go jump on. Number one, we have up on Security Boulevard. Fight the surge of coronavirus-related attacks. And there is a surge. We've seen a pandemic, not just of the coronavirus and COVID-19, but a pandemic of related cyber attacks to this, and it's disgusting, frankly. But nevertheless, here's some good tips on how to fight that surge and stay safe. Also up on the boulevard, we have encryption. Politicians try to outlaw math again. You know, I don't know what it is, I guess we do a lousy job of lobbying or educating our politicians. They all want to make, in essence, back doors into all of our technology so that true encryption is not possible. And they don't get the math involved, right? Because if people truly do want to encrypt stuff, they can. And so we can make it easier or harder, but I just think they're, throwing spitballs at the wall and for the wrong reasons. But anyway, read the article. You have your own opinion on it and check it out. Over on DevOps.com, we have microservices versus monolith. Which is right for your enterprise? Obviously, we don't talk about doing monolithic development much on DevOps.com. It's kind of antithesis to what DevOps and microservices are. But I also am a big believer that you use the right tools for the job, you use the right method for a given outcome that you want to have. And so there is a place in the world for monoliths versus Microsofts and microservices, excuse me. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive, that you do one always or the other always. I think you do both, and you use the right one for the right situation. I don't think you have to do it on an enterprise-wide basis either. But anyway, read the article. Comment on your opinion. I think we all have our opinions on it. Also up on DevOps.com, we have how to minimize latency and its impact on UX. This is if you're a UX designer or any application designer. We see it in our analytics on our sites. If stuff doesn't load really quickly and you have a lot of latency, it's just not a great environment for people to work in or operate in. So take that to heart, take a look at it. And then finally, over on Container Journal today, lots going on in the cloud native world. We see how the rise of containers will drive DevOps. I think we're already seeing that, but I think it'll accelerate in the months and years ahead. And then crypto miners invade Docker Hub. What can I say? Go read the article. I'm not even going to get into that one. But those are just a couple of the headlines out on the media ops sites today. Why don't you go check them out? But for now, we are going to turn things over to Mrs. Charlene O'Hanlon, managing editor of all the media ops sites here at DevOps.com, Container Journal, Security Boulevard. Charlene has a really good video with, I think it's the CEO of Catchpoint, about a recent survey they did. And she'll also be highlighting this week's webinars on Media Ops. So check that out. I think we've got some great webinars this week. So now let's go over to Charlene.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to TechStrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, managing editor at Media Ops, and I am so excited now to be having a conversation with Mehdi Dowdy, who is the CEO of Catchpoint. Mehdi, thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes and talking with me today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Charlene, for having me and allowing me to talk a little bit about this amazing survey we run every year.
Yeah. So this is the 2020 SRE survey that you guys released on June 24th last week. So tell us a little bit about the survey itself and maybe some of the things that really caught your eye with this year's results.
Sure. So this is the third year we run the survey. The majority of our customers and the users that use our platform are SREs. And 3 years ago, we decided that it would be interesting to keep an eye on what makes their job interesting, what makes their job a little bit more stressful than others. And it's interesting to see a lot of progress in some areas, and unfortunately, not so much progress in others. That is causing a little bit of stress on these SREs, and mostly dealing with automation and the fact that they're still not spending enough time on the engineering side of the SRE, mostly still doing ops and repetitive tasks to some degree. And that's one of the things that concerns them and concerns us in terms of our finding. And that's something that the SRE community we've interviewed really want to change. And so companies need to invest heavily on that. I know it's always interesting to work on the coolest, latest stuff like a cloud migration or, migrating an organization to use microservices and whatnot. However, the legacy stuff that still needs to run, nobody is willing to invest and automate, for example, or improve the monitoring and the visibility. That's causing some of the stress on the SREs that we see. And this is the third year in a row we hear the same thing.
Oh, okay. All right. So you guys talked to more than 700 SREs for this survey, right?
Correct.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a pretty significant number. And to hear that, they're still dealing with the same issues 3 years in a row is actually kind of sad to hear, actually. But were there any particular survey findings that really kind of surprised you? Maybe something that's changed over the last year, or just something that just came right out of the blue?
No, I mean, again, it's nice to see that more and more organizations are adopting the SRE methodology because it's a methodology or a way of doing things. When I talk to some of them, the challenge they have is somebody bought the book, How to Do SRE at Google, is trying to implement it at the bank or something that is not Google. And so learning how to adapt that is been a challenge. What we try to tell folks is, whatever Google built is for Google, right? So you need to adapt that for your own company and your own organization. The majority of them are still struggling because they're spending 75% of their time still doing ops stuff. So it's becoming more just like a nice title or a different title than ops, and that's not what SRE should be. It really should own the whole process from development, release cycles, monitoring, production, and be able to go from left to right. And the other thing that we noticed is some companies are adopting both SREs and DevOps, which is fine, but there is no clear demarcation on who's doing what. And so those levels of conflict can be a little bit interesting to solve. SREs are, or even ops in the old way of calling some of these organizations. I used to be one of them. So, sometimes waking up at 2:00 in the morning, dealing with a problem day after day after day, can really have an impact on your physical well-being, your family well-being. I remember at some point my wife wanting to kick me out of the room because, 3 days in a row, waking up at 2:00 with a pager is no fun, especially when you have a young child. So this is the human element that people don't see sometimes about SREs, but it's a very, very important one. And that's why investing in monitoring, investing in automation, investing in some of these resiliency things are extremely important for the well-being of these folks, because SREs that wake up every day at 2:00 in the morning, they're not very productive at 9 a.m. And then there are impacts like delayed projects and those kind of consequences that people should take into account. So the human element is something that I think some organizations spend a lot of time on, others not, unfortunately.
So you mentioned that a lot of organizations are, kind of feeling their way, as it were, when it comes to site reliability engineers and what the job role is, thinking that, to your point, they're not Google, so they're not going to do what Google does. But do you think that having automation and these technologies to help SREs, do you think that actually might kind of help right the way site reliability, easy for me to say, site reliability engineers, are supposed to, what they're supposed to be doing in their jobs? Do you think it's going to kind of, make it a little bit more like what it should be?
Sure. So, the companies where I've seen site reliability engineering work really well are the ones that have done a gradual transition, a gradual adoption. You pick one system, you build a SRE team around it, you build the right tools, the right telemetry, the right processes, the right escalation systems, all of that. And it's a bite size, right? So it's like one project, one product, and that has been extremely powerful versus companies that try to move a big monolithic application to an SRE mentality and an SRE process without all the subsequent things. But monitoring is extremely important. The ability to call, the on-call system is extremely important. Who do you call? Make sure that people have enough time to recover from a weekend being on call, those kind of things. And process documentation. One of the things that SRE does is it really forces a company to document their stuff, their release procedures, their code reviews. It's literally an unbelievable journey when you go through it, and you come out really, really strong at the end. But it's an investment, and things don't happen overnight. So the biggest challenge I see is when organizations just get a top-down approach. Let's get the Google SRE handbook. Let's get the process, and let's try to implement it overnight in an organization that is not built for that. SRE requires a transformation of culture. It also requires a level of accountability that is unprecedented usually in companies. And also the adoption of observability, making sure that you have the right telemetry, the right processes around that, but also a level of accountability. You need to have service level agreements, well, not SLAs, but you need to have your service level objectives clearly defined with clear lines of communication between all the parties and being able to report on it continuously, constantly. So it's not easy. And again, I would highly recommend for folks, instead of trying to take this big mountain and try to implement SRE overnight, to take a new project, a new product, a new launch, and just bite-sized go at it slowly and surely so you can implement all the right things. And then, what people say, nail it before you scale it, right?
Right,
so
yeah.
Nail it on one project, and then you can scale it throughout the organization.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I did read in the survey is the fact that there are now post-COVID or in the middle of this pandemic, the attitudes toward working remotely have changed dramatically among SREs. That now I guess it's like 50% say that they plan to work from home, whereas before it was only like 20%. So, do you think that that's that is maybe a percentage that's going to stick around after things get quote unquote back to normal?
I think, and this doesn't apply only to SREs. We do surveys at Catchpoint, and I only have 1/3 of my employees that want to come back to an office. And so this is something that we're going to see across the spectrum of employee types, whether it's an engineer, an SRE, DevOps, anybody, to be honest. What we are realizing is you don't have to be clustered in New York or San Francisco or any of these big cities, which is actually an amazing thing because you're discovering new talents that are completely outside of your physical boundaries. And in my opinion, having SREs distributed is actually amazing because talking about reliability, you have now a reliable team that is spread out around the world or the country or whatever it might be. I think that's opening up the doors to a lot of possibilities. Again, finding great talents, and talent is going to have a better quality of life, not being in San Francisco or paying, very expensive rent or New York or whatnot. Right. And so the quality of life balance is going to be improved, and then you'll have access to a lot more talent. And then when you think about an SRE team, it's a team that is designed to work in a disaster environment, under high pressure, anywhere, anytime, those kind of things. So the remote working and making this permanent shouldn't be a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Makes total sense. Do you think that the SRE job is actually going to kind of be changing in the light of so many people now working remotely?
Yes, and we're starting to see some of it. So I'm a big believer in SRE just because I used to be an ops guy at DoubleClick, and then Google bought DoubleClick, and we had to drink the Google SRE Kool-Aid and adapt and learn how to do things the Google way. And we have some of our employees that are former Googlers, so it's helping us strengthen the whole SRE practice. But one of the things is I see more and more companies adopting the SRE methodology. And again, some perfectly, some not so perfectly, but they're really trying. So I think SREs are here to stay. I think their role is going to play a much more important role. And we've seen companies that were successful at dealing with COVID situation because they had an SRE organization, because they had the right telemetry, the right processes, the right on-call systems than traditional organization. The thing that we're starting to see, which is kind of interesting, is the same way you had an SRE organization built to support the customer-centric products or business, team in charge of the whole platform, but again, customer-focused. We're starting to see now is the deployment of SRE organization to be employee-focused, meaning that now you have a team of SREs that are looking out for the employee suite of products they use, because everything is moved to the cloud, Office 365, Gmail, Salesforce, all that stuff. So how do you now take the SRE philosophy, which is delivering a first-class experience to the customers and making sure that your revenue is growing, your brand is protected, operational excellence and whatnot, and then turning it inwards now to your employees, so your employees can have a first-class experience because they're not in an office with like super high-speed connectivity, security is a problem, those kind of things. So I think we're going to see a new generation of SREs, and some of our customers actually already have that, that are dedicated and focused on making sure that the employees they have, thousands and thousands of them, are having an amazing first-class experience with all the tools they have to use. So it's going to be interesting to see that.
Yeah. Sounds like. Well, Mehdi, thank you so much for walking me through this year's survey results. And it'll be interesting to have this conversation this time next year.
Absolutely. Go SREs.
All right.
That's the only way.
All right. Great.
Thank you so much. And thank you for DevOps to participate in doing this survey this year with us. That was amazing.
It was great. It was our pleasure. As always. So.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more TechStrong TV coming up, so stay tuned.
Thank you, Charlie. Bye-bye.
Disruption is occurring across every aspect of IT. Open source, cloud services, DevOps, and cloud-native software architectures are democratizing IT and radically transforming how business is done. The old ways of creating software and doing IT are being replaced with agile, flexible, faster, and cheaper methods, benefiting vendors and users alike. Accelerated Strategies Group is out to democratize access of industry expertise and knowledge. We use our expertise and experience to offer insightful, intelligent, useful information in a variety of formats relevant to the IT community, digital events, videos, reports, assessments, workshops, and implementation projects with tech vendors, IT organizations, and business leaders. We widely and openly share our work products, often for free. Analyst reports these days aren't worth more than a graph or chart that tells a story or illustrates a market trend. We work with developers, DevOps teams, cloud architects, security engineers, and transformation leaders most every day, creating and implementing transformational strategies and technologies. We're not just thinkers, we're also doers.
Hey everybody, Charlene O'Hanlon here, Managing Editor at Media Ops, and I'm here to talk about some of the webinars that we have coming up this week on DevOps.com. We have a number of great webinars happening, and I sure hope that you guys will be able to join in and enjoy the sessions that we have coming up. But there are three that I wanted to highlight. The first one is actually happening today at 1 p.m. Eastern. As I said, it's on DevOps.com, and it's one that I'm moderating, and it's on the topic of AI ops. Now, the conversation is actually loosely based on an ebook that we just released, and really looking forward to this discussion. I've got on a panel with Anaïs Dotis Georgiou of Influx Data and Aaron Bekar of Micro Focus. They're both going to be joining me to talk about the topic of AI ops and how it kind of fits into the tool chain, but also they're going to be talking about some customers that are using AI ops and even how Micro Focus has kind of has actually added AI ops into its technology. So it's going to be a great discussion. I hope you guys can join me for that. Again, that's happening today at 1 p.m. Eastern, and you can find the information on DevOps.com. The second webinar that I wanted to let you guys know about is actually happening tomorrow, Tuesday, June 30th at 11 a.m. And it's another panel discussion. This one is going to be on the state of open source security and DevSecOps pipelines. This one is actually based on a survey that was the results of which were just released by Sneak last week. And they are going to be hosting this particular webinar. We've got Alyssa Miller from Sneak who's going to be on the panel, and she's actually having on the webinar with her Justin Cormack from Docker Inc. and Ilan Rabinovich from Datadog. So they're going to talk about the results. They're going to talk about the state of open source security in general. Lots of good stuff on tap. So please, hopefully you guys will be able to join us for that one as well. Again, that one is happening Tuesday, June 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Now, our final webinar today that I'm going to be talking about today is actually another one that's happening tomorrow. This one is happening at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's also DevSecOps related. And this one is, the title is The Security Phoenix, a Modern Approach to DevSecOps Focus on People. And this one looks at DevSecOps from a little different point of view. It takes, rather than looking at the technologies and the tool chain, this one actually looks at it more from a holistic point of view and really how organization-wide DevSecOps can be a pervasive technoloation and mindset, actually. So again, a different point of view on DevSecOps. Hopefully you guys will be able to make some time and join us for that one as well. That one is actually being sponsored by WhiteSource. And Francesco Cipollone is going to be the speaker. He's from a company called NSC42. He's, I believe, the CISO, and he's going to be the presenter for that one. So hopefully you guys will be able to join us for that. All right, guys, tune in tomorrow, and I'll be talking about some more webinars that we have coming up on the sites. But for now, please, happy viewing and stay safe.
Hey, thanks very much, Charlene. Appreciate the pickup there. Great interview. You know what happens after we come back from Charlene O'Hanlon? It's the Analyst Corner with Mitch. Two segments from Mitch today, both around low code. First, Mitch is going to give you kind of his take on some of the trends and what we're seeing in low code. And then Mitchell has a great interview with Charles Varr from TrackVia on low code and remote and how present circumstances are playing out on that. So let's now go to our Analyst Corner with Mitchell Ashley.
Hi, and welcome to Analyst Corner. Mitch Ashley with Accelerated Strategies Group. I have a really fascinating conversation, an interview coming up with Charles Varr, who is EVP with TrackVia. Now, TrackVia is a company whose I've seen the evolution of for well over a decade, or about a decade, just over a decade actually, kind of going from the hosted SaaS database model for applications to really the low-code environment, a much richer
platform for creating applications. And what I think is interesting about this, and while I hope you'll stay tuned to watch it, is Charles and I are able to explore some interesting data that they've collected in a survey talking about COVID. And, there's a lot of discussion about remote work and how happy are people working remotely. And we've done some work in that area. They uncovered some interesting data around how many people are running into challenges because not everything can be done remotely because it's not digital. There are manual processes, there's information data systems that are not conducive to being able to run remotely or in a distributed fashion. So I thought that was one interesting point. The other is just the momentum behind the low-code market that's also being supported by the acceleration of digital projects, digital transformation strategies, and everything that's happening with the economy that's helping to push that to happen more quickly, as well as just organizations finding that they can get things done more quickly. When there's a need, you can bypass some of the corporate politics and the slowness of how things might work to really get some important things done. So it was interesting data also in the report that talked about how many people, business users, non-IT users, feel empowered by the organization to go find technology solutions to their problems, things like low code. It's a very fascinating market because obviously it's empowering others to use the tools themselves to solve the problems for themselves. Now, there's also challenges with that. With any tool, with great power comes great responsibility, as Uncle Ben from Swiderand likes to say. That's true of application creation. And there are areas that often run into challenges, things like security, access control, SSO, also data, getting access to data from many, many different sources and the structures of that data and how to normalize some of that in a way that can be used across by a low-code application for someone who's not a in strength, strong DBA kind of person. So it's a really interesting topic, and I think you'll see more from accelerated strategies in areas like low-code, an important role that it's playing in our digital transformation. I also put a lot of stock into that because it sort of follows this bent of there is application development using code. It's been that way since the starting days of software creation, but there's always been this momentum on top of software creation with programming languages to be able to create software better ways. I mean, one of the first things I remember was people creating applications in Excel and adding, Visual Basic and macros and all kinds of things where you could create a UI, kind of rough, but on top of Excel in the relative early days of that, to, of course, code generators and now end user tools for building their own applications. So just think about where that will go in the next 5 to 10 years and how much that will be an important reliance of businesses on their digital transformation strategy because they're counting on their own ability to not only create software quickly, but react to happenings in market, opportunities as well as threats, problems, being able to experiment. I've talked before about really what digital transformation is leaders' confidence in the organization to deliver software, which enables them to take more risk and also react when there are problems where they take higher risks in experimentation. It's a really great topic. So stay tuned. We'll have our interview with Charles Varr from TrackV up in just a moment.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Well, I'm joined by Charles Varr, who's EVP of Marketing at TrackV, a company that I actually have known for a little while. Welcome, Charles. Good to be talking with you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. This is awesome.
You're in a great space, your company, TrackV. Tell us a little bit about first yourself and then also about TrackV.
Sure. Not much interesting about me, but my name is Charles Varr. I run marketing here at TrackVia. I've been with the company a couple of different times. I'm on my second stint. I just can't get away from it. But I love the category. I love the company. A little bit about TrackVia. At its core, we're all about helping business people take their ideas for doing things better and empowering them with technology to turn those ideas into applications themselves. So the analogy I like to use is WordPress. As a marketer, years ago, if I wanted a website built, I'd have to hire a developer to build it and manage it and change it. And in much the same way, we're trying to empower business people to take their ideas for doing things better and faster and giving them the tools to build applications that they can create themselves, manage themselves, and even edit themselves to do their work better.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you use WordPress as an analogy because that sort of started out as a platform in technology and has evolved into a content management system, at least a form of it. And you yourself have kind of gone through that transition. I know when I worked or talked with you in the early 2000s, TrackVia was more an online database, spreadsheet kind of company. You've really evolved the platform or the capabilities to be a much broader tool set and capabilities for business people as well as kind of high-end developer technical people to be able to build applications, correct?
That's right. That's right. Any application at its core is comprised of a database of information, right? And that's sort of where we started off, and similar solutions started off there as well. Over time, what TrackVia has done is added automation, integration capabilities, mobile capabilities, offline mobile capabilities. So these advanced things that took the kernel of the database, all the data, and built automation and capabilities around it. So what has effectively started off as an online database has turned into or blossomed into full-blown, powerful applications hosted in the cloud, web and mobile, and automated and intelligent in many cases. So we've gone from simple databases to pretty powerful and robust applications that people can build themselves without any coding required.
Well, not a bad strategy. What's at the center of every online app? Data, right? So good job on that. Well, we're going to talk about a couple things, and I do want to talk to you about so the application evolution, what's happening with COVID and digital project acceleration, things like that. But first, you did a survey. You've come out a report about how people are working in the current work at home, COVID remote work situation. And really, instead of the typical how many people like working at home and that kind of thing, you really dug into some other areas about what are some of the challenges people are finding working in a remote that maybe weren't ready for that. Can you tell some more about the survey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously COVID hit us all as a surprise. None of us anticipated this, but one of the things that we observed early on was our customers who were using the platform seem to be navigating this pretty well, despite having many of their workforce or their employees working remote. And that's because they had configured themselves these applications that people could access from anywhere. But we also started getting a lot of inquiries from companies that were scrambling. And what they were telling us anecdotally was, gee whiz, we had these manual processes that we kind of figured we would solve later on. But later on is now here. Those manual processes broke. We can't do that. So we need your help, and we need your help fast. And so that was the sort of the canary in the coal mine that triggered this idea that I wonder if this is widespread. So we conducted a survey with both business users and IT professionals at mid to large size enterprises to talk about this notion of, hey, COVID hit. What sort of gaps were exposed as a result? Not just from a remote work standpoint, but more from a manual standpoint. What things did you rely manually to get done? Or
what wasn't ready to be done digitally, essentially?
That's right. And were those important things? And has that impacted your business? And so obviously the data reflects that. And some of the things that we found was, nearly 2/3, 62% of workers said that there was some manual process that broke as a result of COVID hitting their business and basically halted their ability to do their work as they had done before. And so, and then we also saw some data points around the urgency and the need, both by business users and IT professionals, to fill that gap quickly. So 96% of IT said that they've had to adapt new technologies and tools to try to fix this problem. 89% of IT said that these manual processes simply could not be performed since COVID. So there's a lot of pent-up urgency and need within businesses to solve this problem. And of course, as we were talking about before the show started, the demand for developers has only significantly increased as these gaps have been exposed. And so companies just generally are trying to figure out, how do we solve all these problems with a limited and finite set of resources and developers and IT professionals? And so a low-code system like TrackVia provides an opportunity to empower more employees to solve their own problems themselves.
But certainly COVID and the acceleration of digital projects, especially because of COVID and remote work, but also the economic pressures around recovery and powering through and survival for some companies. It's brought a lot of attention to low code, things like that can accelerate application development. I think it points out the gap that the popular apps kind of get a lot of attention, of the Slacks and the Team and et cetera, online meeting technology like Zoom that we're using today. So those are sort of the first order of just basic collaboration capabilities. For you, are you seeing the kind of pickup in market or the interest in this mostly from current customers that are accelerating projects, or you seeing a real uptick in new customers or people really wanting to significantly expand what they're doing?
It's a little bit of both. It actually happened in sequence. So the existing customers had the benefit of familiarity with low code. And so when these gaps were exposed within their organization, they instantly knew how to solve those. And they instantly had a go-to solution to do that. And so out the gate, most of our customers came running saying, all those apps that we said we were going to get to, well, guess what? We're getting to now. And so the beauty of low code is not only the simplicity at which you can create applications, but the real value, in my opinion, is really the speed to solution. Many of these applications that our existing companies came to us with, they were literally standing up applications within days. So they were able to take a spreadsheet, use it as the starting point, upload it into TrackVia. It intelligently turns that into an application which they can configure, assign users, and implement literally in a matter of days. That simply is phenomenal for an organization who is trying to react in real time to a situation that we're all trying to grapple with. So that was the initial push, was with our existing customers. And then not soon thereafter, I think probably as people were networking with their colleagues and professionals, what the heck do I do? Hey man, you should check out low code systems. We started to see a pretty large influx of incoming inquiries around low code, starting with the IT department. Hey, my IT department or my developers are getting flooded with requests and there's no way we can solve these, but what's the alternative? And a low code system certainly fits that bill. So many companies come to us with a problem, but to your point around the economics, a low code platform has the ability to solve that most immediate problem first, fast, and then allows you to start picking off those adjacent workflows or processes that are around that quite rapidly. And so companies actually gain much more value the longer they use it. So once you figure it out, you can solve virtually any process or workflow that you have in mind quite rapidly.
Now, your report also talked about people feeling more comfortable solving kind of their own problems for themselves, getting applications and tools to go after this. There's also another stat in there about the view of IT as kind of an enabler to help them, support them, provide tools, or get access to things that help them solve those kind of problems. But what do you attribute that to? Or can you tell us a little bit more about what you found and then why you think that's the case?
No, it's a great point. One of the things that's interesting is we conducted a similar survey about 5 years ago. Again, it wasn't in the context of COVID, but we were surveying both business people and IT people about their appetite. Do business people really want to build their own applications? And do IT people feel comfortable allowing Charles to go out and build his own application? And we compared those results 5 years ago to where they are today. And certainly COVID has accelerated it, I think, but I think it's also the natural evolution of technology. And in terms of, I'm a consumer as well as a marketer, but as a consumer, there's just so many things that I feel empowered to do. If I can't find an internal solution to a problem and I can't go to get help, I am pretty comfortable going out into the internet or jumping on my phone and finding something myself. And so we're starting to see that pick up speed as younger generations enter, management roles. And so people are just more comfortable with technology in general and feel more empowered to do it. They just need the right tools. That's number one. And then certainly IT has been exploring this both from a demand perspective. They don't have the capacity to solve the appetite for software. And so how do they solve it differently? And low code systems like a TrackVia have spent years really trying to perfect and perform or perfect how they give admins or IT people the comfort level and the control over the application sufficient that they feel comfortable that someone's not going to do anything dumb, right? So the security protocols, the user permissioning, the SOC compliance, all the different environments, all that stuff is really baked into an advanced platform like a TrackVia, such that IT can feel comfortable that they can set this up, put this in the hands of a business user with some guardrails, and let them self-manage. Now, IT does get involved occasionally, but it certainly minimizes that burden such that they can focus on some larger projects.
So I'm going to acknowledge up front, I'm talking to head of marketing here. So you're supposed to answer all the questions positively, teeing that up that way. With low code kind of solutions, what are sort of the wrong paths to go down? With every tool, great power comes great responsibility, right? Every capability has things that it's naturally really great at solving. And sometimes you can apply technology to a problem, or the way you use it sort of takes you down a path that really kind of isn't the greatest place to go. And since you've been in market for a while now, I'm just curious, what are the learnings you've had about what's not the best things to do and what are the better things to go after?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking about this on my drive to the office. So I'll tell you a little personal story, and then I think it's analogous with low code. But our smoke detector went out in our house. So I went to the store and I bought a smoke detector, and I unpackaged it, and I took the quick startup instructions and I chucked them. And I started to install it.
Like every guy.
Like every guy, right? Well, about halfway through, I realized I was headed down the wrong path, that maybe I should stop, go find that instruction book and follow the instructions. And after doing that, I did a good job. That to a certain extent, it's analogous with low code, which is it's so easy, or appears so easy, and it is, and it's so fast that you're quick to just jump straight into it. And there's some principles I think that are important, or some basic tips maybe that someone with more experience can offer that will help get you started off on the right path. So we spend a lot of time working with customers. In fact, many customers who come to us for the very first time and they have an app, sure, you can do it yourself, but let us help you. Because if we can take a little extra time, we'll slow things down intentionally just to help you, make sure you get off on the right path. That will prove huge dividends down the road as you build your second or your third or your 50th app. Because some just basic principles about data structure, or parent-child relationships, or how to set up users in the system appropriately will just help you avoid pitfalls down the road that you may not have anticipated. So while we love to get people into solutions fast, sometimes taking an extra minute to read the instruction book is probably helpful, at least for your very first app. And then after that, you're on your own.
It's often those unknown or unintended consequences of decisions you make. You just don't know yet. But now that you have, those lessons. Why not share them?
That's right. That's right. So
let's talk a little bit more about the survey, the research that you did. I'm really curious about this idea of people being empowered to go, after their own solutions. But that end users or business people, let's put it in that category, they feel like that it's really accelerated the need for the overall business to go after technology solutions. Maybe that's in part why they themselves feel empowered to do that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the two work hand in hand. I think, if anything, COVID has been a catalyst for people to take advantage of this inner need or inner desire to solve problems themselves rapidly with technology. And certainly low code gives them the avenue to do that. 58% of people that we surveyed did in fact say they feel empowered to address these changes they have faced since COVID. And, and then even, 61% of workers said that if they had the tools available to them, they would certainly take advantage of them, right? I think that's always a concern within organizations. If we invest in this platform, we'll buy TrackVia and we'll make it available to all of our employees, but are they going to use it? Well, I think some of the survey points to that they're not only going to use it, but they're wanting to use it. And it's a big part of helping them do their jobs, which ultimately as a technology organization within a company, that's your job, right? You want to empower the organization to leverage technology in smart ways that produce the results for the business. And low code represents a new way to empower more people within your organization. The fascinating thing that I find most interesting often is this discussion around who is best positioned to solve a problem, right? I work in marketing, so I'm intimately familiar with what we do in marketing every single day. If I go to a developer or I go to IT with a request, they know infinitely more about technology, but they're not intimate about my day-to-day work. And I try to describe it and I explain it and they get it, but not in the same way that I do. And so we're kind of flipping that around to say, why don't you put the technology tools in the hands of people who know their business best or who know their process intimately? And it's amazing to see the kind of applications that people build with that deep, intimate knowledge of their work. And the truth of the matter is that no two businesses are alike. So we'll work with company A in manufacturing, and they have a quality control process that they follow. And then I'll work with company B over here, and they too have a quality control process. But their products couldn't be more different. Their process couldn't be more different. And to a certain extent, that's the secret sauce of their organization. And so if you can put a tool in the hands of people who are intimate with the process, their secret sauce, they can produce a software or an application that maps perfectly. There's no shortage of quality control applications out in the world. Sure. The problem is you have to do it their way. And their way may not be your way or the best way for your company.
It's interesting too, being a cloud-based solution, SaaS kind of solution. You take a lot of the friction or the barrier to entry for individuals and organizations to get started, right? You can immediately set yourself up and start experimenting or building an application in a matter of minutes and hours, not days and weeks and months.
Well, and you touched on something interesting in the word experimentation, right? One thing we all know in business is that whatever works today is probably not going to work next week. So the world is changing, our competition is changing, our vendors are changing, our employees are changing. And so our software needs to be nimble enough to change with it. And one of the challenges, it's always been the case with large generically built software, is the ability to change or edit or try new things. We talk a lot about processes, and many people will say, I have a process. Great, we can configure the software to match that process precisely. But what if you want to change that process? Or what if you want to take a step out? Or what if you've identified a way to do things better? Great. Well, how do you implement that in software? Well, low code is not only fast to get up and running, but can be configured in seconds. So if you want to, all of a sudden, as a simple example, maybe your quality inspectors are checking out your products as they're going down the production line, and for some strange reason, you recognize that the green products are not performing as well. So it's important that they capture what color the product is as it's going down the line. Well, in a solution like TrackVia, you can add a field that says, check the color, and then you hit save, and instantaneously that field appears on the mobile device on the production line, instantaneously. Mm-hmm. So that ability to be nimble on the fly is extremely powerful. Now that's obviously a silly and simple example, but you get the concept of the ability to test and try new things and collect new information as your process and as the world around you evolves. So that's a pretty powerful capability that low code brings to bear.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had an experience like that. We're using a workflow tool for some internal projects, and I was bringing somebody up to speed, and we're getting together, and she asked, "Say, can I take control of the screen or demo? You can watch what I'm doing." I said, "Well, actually, it's an interactive application, so everything you do, I'm going to see happen. You don't have to share your screen. If you just do it, I'll see the results pop up, kind of like adding that field." You mentioned about the experimentation. I believe a big part of digital transformation is the organization's belief in their capability around software, how to create software quickly, but also react opportunistically, as well as when a negative situation occurs. We experiment, something didn't work out, we've got to get to contactless services in days and hours, not weeks and months. But it's that reaction either to experiment, but also to react when something's not going right and get it quickly, because that's what increases the trust of executives, of leaders, to say, well, I know if it doesn't go exactly right, we can also respond then, as well as on the positive side when there's an opportunity. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny that probably shouldn't admit this, but the biggest challenge we have at TrackVia, at least as a marketer, is getting our customers to share their story. Why? Because they view low code and TrackVia as their competitive advantage, right? Their ability to react and respond to scenarios much faster than their competition is a huge advantage for them. And so they're reluctant to want to talk too much about it. They're huge advocates of the product, but I don't really want to tell my competition that they should be using something like this. And so to your point, I think that's a huge, significant part of businesses' challenge today, is to respond and react to those things.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is, you mentioned, sort of this digital transformation. One of the things that low code is a term that's broadly used to describe software tools that allow you to configure and build applications faster than you would otherwise be able to do writing traditional code. But there's a whole range of low-code systems, from low-code systems that are really geared for professional developers, and relatively speaking, they're less code than writing it manually, but they're really complex and they're really, really powerful. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have these true drag and drop systems. TrackVia falls a little bit in the middle, trying to combine the two things. But the reason I mention it is that as organizations think about how to solve this digitization challenge across the organization, and how to deal with the shortage of developers and IT people, many of the organizations are now basically taking a two-pronged approach, where they'll implement a higher end or a more complicated low-code systems, and they put that in the hands of the developers. And those guys and gals are intended to use that system to build, super complex, super sophisticated applications on a global level faster than they otherwise would be able to. And then they buy a separate platform for their citizen developers. This is about empowering business users and business analysts and operation leaders and IT folks to build the applications they need without burdening the development team. And so that's a big trend that we're seeing recently, is that it's not a one-size-fits-all to cover the full waterfront of digitization needs across an organization. And so going with a two-pronged approach seems to work best for a lot of companies today. Of course, those two worlds will eventually merge, we suspect, as we become more powerful and other systems become simpler to use. But for now, companies that are on the forefront of digitizing their operation and streamlining things are deploying both.
An area that I think is a challenge for entering into the low code usage, for customers, is getting to data, and how to, especially when it's from multiple sources. Well, first getting access to it, then collecting it all together and pulling it together in a way that they can use. And, it has a different kind of permanency than code does, right? It tends to not be as fungible in terms of how you can structure it. What are some of the ways that you've seen either yourself or your customers address that kind of challenge with low code?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and it is a big challenge. Oftentimes, what's amazing to me is despite the size of the company, or it'll be a household name company, and you think to yourself, golly, these folks probably have unlimited resources. But it's surprising me how often they'll come to me and they'll say, Charles, we're keeping track of this, billion-dollar business basically on a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes, more often than not, you'll see folks who surprisingly are keeping track of some critical things using rudimentary tools like a spreadsheet. So there is no system of record. Of course, we ingest that and normalize the data and get it centralized and systematize it. But of course, this data can't live on an island. And so we spend a lot of time building in really easy and powerful tools to integrate into existing systems. Both pulling data out of a system of record, doing some work around it, and then pushing it back so that the integrity is maintained. In some cases, TrackVia is the system of record. My favorite example is the North Face. So everybody's familiar with the North Face manufacturers. Well, they obviously have a multi-million-dollar ERP system in place. But one of their challenges was occasionally they would manage all their manufacturing through this monster ERP system. But occasionally they'd get a special order from one of their VIP customers. Call it a Nordstrom's, if you will. Nordstrom's wants to do a special run of orange and blue fleeces for their Denver market. I'm in Denver. I'm a Broncos fan. Sorry. But that's what they want to do. Well, their ERP system couldn't do it. So they'd have to extract data out into a spreadsheet, manage that special order separately, and then have to hand enter it back into the ERP system. It took them 28 days from start to finish on an average custom order, I should say. They came in with TrackVia, they systematized that spreadsheet process, which was like 28 spreadsheets, into a single application. We're able to share it with users across the full life cycle and push and pull data back into their ERP system seamlessly. And they took that production process from 28 days down to 7. And so obviously that's good for business, that's good for customer relations and the output, and it's even good for employees. They don't have to mess around with all these darn spreadsheets. So we ingest data lots of different ways because data ingests and lives in lots of different places, but we try to maintain the integrity of that with real simple modern APIs and an integration engine that's pretty simple to use.
Great. Well, I kind of wrap things up here. It's been a great conversation. I'll ask you a tough question, which is predict the future, right? So you did your survey 5 years ago, version of it that you just repeated again. If you project forward and think maybe 2 to 3 years with all this emphasis around digital transformation and using technologies like yours, low code, what do you think? How do you think people might respond differently to the same survey, let's say in 2 years from now, if you had to guess?
I think we're on a continuum. I think things are accelerating in low code. So I think it'll become a term and a concept that's more familiar with folks. As a result of doing shows like this, people are just more aware that that's even possible. I think a lot of people just aren't even aware that it's possible. So I think it'll continuously evolve. And in 2 years from now, we'll run the same survey and you'll see 90% of people or business users want to and feel empowered and confident enough to do their own systems. What's more fun for me to think about is what does it look like in 10 years? In 10 years, I imagine as a new employee, I'm going to show up at my desk and I'm going to get a password for my email communications platform and a username and password to access my communication stuff. And then I'm going to get one password to a thing called TrackVia. I'm a little optimistic, but TrackVia gives me access to all the applications that the company uses to keep track of and manage work within its organization. And I'll have the ability to add new applications to that and share that with others. And so a low-code platform, whether it's TrackVia or somebody else, becomes sort of the foundation of all the work that gets done and how all that work is tracked and managed within an organization. over time. There'll still be accounting systems, there'll still be CRM systems, but the foundation of how the organization operates will primarily be centralized within a low-code systems, because you can track and do everything within that. How's that for optimism, huh?
I'm sure a lot of folks at TrackVia would love for that scenario to happen.
Well,
you are the head of marketing,
right? Might as well go big or go home.
Well, and I know you have passion as well as tenacity. If you're a Broncos fans these days, I'm a Broncos fans too. It's not an easy time to be a Broncos fan, especially after some great history here. Well, how can folks find out more about TrackVia, get access to product, test it out? I assume it's trackvia.com. Is that the website?
Trackvia.com. And one of the things I would encourage folks to do is, during this COVID crisis, we made available the platform and actually a COVID tracking app. It's just a simple app that we put together for companies to help track, everything from how employees are doing to how, how employees are doing, to anything that they have to do regulation-wise to keep track of and monitor from a sanitation perspective. It's completely free to use. We want people to take advantage of it so that they can try to fill those gaps. It's just our way of helping. So go to trackvia.com. You'll find that. It's available to folks who want to try it out or need to fill a gap real fast during this time. We just want to help. And certainly give us a call. We'd be happy to help out any way we can.
Excellent. And they can get the report there too?
Yep, absolutely. The report's there for download. Just go trackvia.com and you'll find it.
If I remember right, I think the title of it was Work from Home, Work Processes in Quarantine or something like that.
You nailed it. That was pretty close. That's perfect.
It's amazing what notes will do for you. Well, great. It's been fun talking with you, Charles, and it's great to reconnect with TrackVia and see how the company's evolved and positioned in the market, and right smack dab in the middle of digital transformation. And of course, we're all sharing our times in COVID too. So wish you the best and hope to have you on again. Enjoy talking with you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure and fun.
You bet.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Grohl, CEO of the DevOps Institute. Some of you may know me. I did some of the segments for TechStrong TV as a lead up to the TechStrong conference, which was awesome. Well, now I'd like to introduce you to my new series known as Jane Explains. The tech space is moving so fast. The terminology, the applications, the environments, the strategies, the frameworks are accelerating faster than ever before. I'm an old IT director. I managed operations and particularly service desks for a very, very long period of time. And just being able to keep pace with things that have been happening over the last, say, 5 or 6 years has just definitely been a quest. And I'd like to bring some of that to you because, again, it's really challenging unless you're staying on top of all of the changes to be able to understand what's happening and more importantly, I think, why. I'm not the most technical person on the block, so I don't think I'll be tackling too many of the programming languages or other deep technologies, but maybe I'll invite a friend or a colleague to join me who can explain that further. So Jane Explains starts in a couple of weeks. If you have topics that you're interested in, please reach out. Happy to do that. And while you're at it, go up to the DevOps Institute website, www.devopsinstitute.com. Become a member. We have some videos up there known as Skill Up Minutes that may also help you set your learning journey on course. So stay tuned. Jane Explains, coming soon.
All right. Back here in the studio, I hope you enjoyed Mitch's segments and you were able to catch that little commercial about Jane's upcoming Explain with Jane segments. The first one of those will be starting July 2nd, later this week, so make sure you check that out. But I think that's going to call a wrap on today's show for Monday, June 29th. Our week is off and running. We've got a long, well, it's going to actually be a short week. With here in the U.S., we'll have the July 4th holiday coming up. So I wish you all well. I hope you all stay safe, stay well, stay strong, TechStrong. This is Alan Schimmel. We'll see you tomorrow.